What's up, everybody? It's Raphael Garcia back again for another edition of the MMA Ratings Podcast. We're a little late this Sunday morning, almost afternoon, but hey, it's been a long weekend, but a good one um, at that. Let me just say this first. If you live anywhere in the DC, Maryland area, stay in the house, man, because this wind outside is brutal. And, I train. I've been hit in the face a couple times, but I've never been hit in the face as hard as this wind is outside. So, yeah, just stay in the house. It's not worth it. Don't go outside unless if he or she is that good looking, that much fun, then maybe go outside. But if not, stay but in the house. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about some MMA combat sports action. So of course, we had pretty pretty busy week this past cards going on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I won't be mad at you if you missed the action. There were some things worth watching and some things that weren't quite worth watching, but I hate to say it like that, but we're going to touch upon everything that was pretty interesting after the week, touch upon and just talk about some of the news that's going on in the world of MMA. I definitely have some things I want to talk about when it comes to the drug testing issues that we see popping up and just everything else from there. So we're going to go ahead and get right in on this. The first thing I want to talk about Thursday's card first. That was World Series of Fighting 18, I believe it was. So that was, I didn't catch much of that event. The only thing I caught was the main event where Marlon Moraes defended the bantamweight title for, I believe this was actually his first defense because he won the title over Reddinghouse. And then the Cody Bollinger fight was a non-title fight for the weight issue. So I think this was actually his first defense. But he had a tough fight against Josh Hill. Josh started out great. Had the champion kind of hurt at the start of the first round, but Morales was able to turn around for the rest of the show. He won 4 of the 5 rounds. Most rounds, second 2 through 5, he took to get another decision victory. He wasn't able to finish Josh Hill. Josh was definitely slowing down after the first round, so people have been kind of building on that knock against Marlon that he's not finishing guys. He didn't finish Reddinghouse. He had him badly beaten up. He finished Cody though, so he did get a stoppage there, but he didn't get a stoppage against Hill on Thursday. But he still gets the win. Still defended his title. This was I think his 9th win in a row. Yeah, his 9th win in a row since before World Series of Fighting. So he's definitely doing what he needs to do. I wrote a piece this week. I'm not sure if it made it up, but I wrote a piece about how he hasn't really been getting promoted. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the viewership numbers were for this card because I doubt he got a lot of play. But this guy deserves his chance in the UFC. I definitely do believe that he has been looking very good over the last few years. Ever since beating Miguel Torres back in 2012, he's looked really good, and he just hasn't gotten the limelight that he deserves. I think this guy could definitely hang with a lot of the bantamweights in the UFC. He trains up there with Ricardo Almeida, Frankie Edgar, Mark Henry, SMR Wilson, all those guys. So he's getting training with some of the best competitors in the sport, but he's just kind of floundering right now. Luckily for him, he's only 26 years old, and even though he just signed a multi-field fight deal, I think he did in 2014, the specifics weren't released about how many years or how many fights that were on that contract. But at 26 years of age, he can kind of hang around for maybe 2 more years. What's unfortunate though is that they don't have him fighting very often. He fought back in September. He fought twice in 2014, twice in 2013. And this is his first time fighting this year. So he would have enough time where he could possibly get in 3 fights, but I doubt that'll happen. So it may just extend the amount of time that he's under that banner. Hopefully, they can work something out with the UFC. He can kind of build a big enough name for himself that people want to see him in the octagon, and then the UFC can come calling and write a big enough check for him to get out of that current contract that he's in. But I definitely want to see this guy in the octagon, and I want to see him competing against the likes of a Dillashaw, Uriah Faber, guys like that. And I definitely want to talk about Uriah Faber and the Frankie Edgar matchup too. I'm gonna talk about that later on too. But that was, oh man, that got me so excited. But like I said, I'll come back to that. So that was probably the biggest. That was the biggest news bite to take out of the fight from Thursday night. There were also contests going on Friday. For Melvin Mayhew against Alexander uh, Shlemenko, and this was definitely a fight that was set. Obviously, it was the main event of the night. With Scott Coker over there, they're trying to bring the entertainment. I guess they're trying to continue with the entertainment value when it comes to MMA. You can definitely tell with their matchmaking, but this was a knockout win that happened. That's exactly what occurred. Shlemenko won by a spinning back fist in the second round. So they got their highlight reel stoppage out of that. They've gotten so far, two highlight reel stoppages actually out of Melvin Mayhew, showing that he's been finished in his last two fights. So I mean, they're getting their money's worth. He's going out there and he's either getting put out on his shield or putting guys out. Alexander definitely got a much needed win. I'm not gonna say it was against a valuable opponent, but he got a win seeing how things were recently going for him. Pat Curran took a split decision loss against Daniel Weichel, which is a big win for him because Curran was trying to get back into that featherweight title picture, but he wasn't able to get the job done here. This is pretty interesting, man, because you see this with him and with Michael Chandler. They just don't look like the type of guys that everyone thought that they would be. The hopes were that they were, even for myself, I thought that the organization would be able to build their name around both Curran and Chandler, but these guys have definitely faltered since Scott Coker has come around, so they haven't been able to really gain any momentum off of that. And this loss to Daniel kind of comes out of nowhere, because Weichel, let me get some more information on this real quick. Even though he was riding a 3-fight win streak coming into this bout here, he hadn't really fought anybody that was on Curran's level, but this is definitely his biggest win of his career. So it'll be interesting to see what they do next with him. Will they give him a title fight? Probably so, because they really don't have too many other guys at the featherweight division right now. Especially with uh, Pitbull just defeating Daniel Strauss recently. So it's pretty interesting just situation here, man. I'm quite looking forward to seeing what's next. I'm looking more at this guy's resume. He's fought some pretty big names out there. He's fought Dan Hardy. He fought Paul Daly. He's fought Dennis Seaver before. He has a win over Seaver as well, but he lost to Daly and Hardy. So he has a pretty interesting resume out there. He's been fighting for a long time, 13 years. So maybe they have struck gold here and they found someone that can even be a danger to Tricio Friera. Right now, I think Pitbull is just running through guys in featherweight. He's another guy I'd like to see in the UFC just because he's looked so good as of late, and I think he can definitely compete with the biggest names in the sport over there. So yeah, that my first impression was like those are the two big stories to take out of Bellator. I'm not quite, I'm looking forward to seeing what they have coming up next. They have a fight card next weekend. The names on that event aren't at this point in time, but again, that's kind of and Liam McGeary fighting. That's definitely the fight that I want to see because Liam was building a lot of hype around him. So he's only 9-0, but he's been putting together some pretty impressive wins in Bellator since joining that organization. And then you also have Newton, who always flies under the radar. He has done what he's needed to do to kind of earn everybody's respect at this point in his run, but he still has not been getting it. So it's unfortunate that he's kind of floundering right now. But this guy's putting together the wins that he needs. So if he can defeat Liam. He'll be the first guy to actually fight him and beat him. It'll be interesting to see what the narrative is around him after that point. Because no one kind of, I hate to say it, but no one still kind of takes him seriously. They look at him, look at his body type, look at the way he fights, and they just think that he is, for lack of a better term, they look at him as a fluke. But he's done what he's needed to do with wins over Law or over everyone else that he's faced so far. So I think it's about time that he gets some respect, and if he can pull off a win next Friday, that'll be big for him. You also have Paul Daly and Andre Santos. This is another one of those fights where someone's going to get knocked out. Daly is one of those guys. I've always liked Paul Daly, regardless of his antics. He's never really done anything that bad. Obviously, you had the situation with Josh Koscheck years ago, but we've seen that multiple times since then in the UFC. I mean, even Claudia uh, Gadelha most recently, when she was losing her fight, she struck Joanna, whatever her last name is, after the bell. That was clearly after the bell. You had the John Jones, Daniel Cormier situation. That was after the bell there too. You had the I can't remember the guy who pushed the ref after a bad stoppage, but he was cut from it as well. So I mean, you have so many bad situations coming up in the UFC. It's almost amazing to look back and see that they cut Paul Daly for what he did. It was still bad. I'm not making any apologies for him. It was a negative situation, but still, this guy's kind of just been hanging out doing his thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing a fight again on American soil or promotion. You also have I Johango. Excited. Strong team mode to begin with, but his injury issues and just his last couple of performances, he looks good, and he's only 14-4, so it feels like his record is much worse than it is. But he just hasn't been able to live up to his potential, and that's not his fault. He has been dealing with that serious staph injury that almost took his life, and he's dealt with what I think is 2 knee injuries as well. So he he hasn't had the best of luck when it's come to the position he's in. But I mean, he's doing what he's doing. He's making the most money available, and in Bellator, I definitely see him kind of being there and being a big money guy where he keeps fighting, keeps making these good paychecks, and I can honestly see him continuing to win that. I expect him. I think he can beat Chet Congo, even though Congo's only bigger than him. I think he can definitely win that fight, and I would like to see him fight T Ortiz as well too, just to kind of get that big fight under wraps for Bellator. They'll make a lot of money. They'll get a lot of eyes for that fight there too. But I think I don't know if he's going to be champion. I don't know if he's ever going to get to that point. Because he's already tried to fight Newton twice and lost both times. So I don't know if he'll ever be a champion again. But he definitely has potential as being someone that can fight and make some good paydays. Sokoju is also fighting on his card there, and he's another one of those guys that's a knockout waiting to happen. His record is 16-12. He is, and it's pretty bad. But I think he's won twice, 2 straight wins since being under the Bellator banner. So uh, seeing him fight again, it's just another one of those, I hate to say freak fights, but someone's gonna get knocked out, and a lot of times it could be him. So that may be something that catches a lot of people's attention as well. But go looking further down the card, there's 2 other guys I really do want to see fight, and that's Brendan Ward and Payman McCrory. There's some interesting guys there. Ward especially because he looked really good in the tournament that he won a couple years ago. He wasn't able to win the title. Let me look back. Years old, so I'm forward to seeing like these younger competitors kind of growing up within competition. But he looked good in the tournament, but then when he fought Shimeko back in March of last year, he was unable to get the job done. So I want to see what's next for this guy. And then he also fought Tammy, who I just mentioned, but was knocked out in the first round. So yeah, I want to see what this guy does. Like if he's gotten any better, what his growth has been. Because I definitely thought he had a chance to win the title when he challenged for it a couple years ago. And then another guy I'm looking for, again, as I mentioned, Tamden is another one of those competitors who is another young guy who I want to see what he's done with his own growth. So again, Bellator has a good crop of guys who dare and who can become something. I don't want to use the word special, but who can become people that hardcore fans and mainstream wanted to tune in to see. I'm trying to think of a perfect way to put this into words, but just because it's such a difficult landscape in mixed martial arts to try to build up new stars. Everyone's in the UFC, but there are these other organizations that are trying to become viable. Obviously you have Bellator, World Series of Fighting, but you have so many different organizations where guys are becoming prospects, becoming names worth watching, but it's hard to get the fans behind them because it just matching up capabilities just aren't there. Well, these are just a couple of names in Bellator who I want to see fight next Friday, and this will probably be one of the first cards of theirs that I'll tune in with the intention of watching some of the preliminary fights. So again, this fight is on the 27th, which is next Friday, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to stay out of this cold weather and watch some more free MMA. So that brings me to the UFC Bloomfield, as everyone's calling it, event from last night, where Benson Henderson and Brandon Thatch fought, and yeah, there was definitely a lot to take in from this card. I'm going to jump right into the main event where Benson fought at 170 pounds in the UFC for the first time, and I was surprised coming into this event because I read a lot of people that thought that was going to knock out Henderson. I even saw some predictions that were giving the fight to Thatch by the end of the second round, and I was just kind of impressed by that because we forget how it's quick how soon we forget how good Benson Henderson is. I understand why a lot of people don't may not enjoy watching him fight or they struggle with the way he continues to get split decision wins, but man, he did the job here. Even before the rear naked choke that he got in the fourth round, I thought he was winning a lot of the fight. It wasn't easy. I think that took the second round, but Benson was doing what he needed to do. He looked effective throughout the first couple of rounds, and when he got that finish there, I was kind of just looked. I was like, I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised with this. I wrote a piece last week for MMA Ratings that I think he should stay at 170 pounds, and I still agree with that. I think that was still a position where he may be able to, I don't want to say do a little better, but maybe able to work himself into a position to even kind of become a contender there because he's not going to be able to do it at lightweight. He's already lost to Anthony Pettis twice. It looks like Pettis is going to hang on to that title for a while. That's just my opinion there. And Benson, even if even if he continues winning, he just lost twice at lightweight, so that's really going to knock him back at least like 2 years, 2 years worth of work before he can even get into a title picture again. So why not move up to 170? Why not take on some fights that you could win? Maybe get a little bit of a streak going there, and you never know. He could be knocking on the door to become the third guy to ever win two belts in the UFC in two different weight classes. So again, I wasn't too surprised. I'm happy to see him get the win. I'm wondering what's going to happen next to Brandon Thatcher. He's someone who has struggled with injuries. This is his first fight in a little more than a year. So, and he was someone a lot of people were keeping an eye on. They thought he would make a lot of noise as a welterweight. They thought he was going to be somebody that kind of wrecked shop on people. But this isn't a bad loss for him, but it's definitely a rebuilding type loss. Another young guy who looked great was Max Holloway. He fought Cole Miller, earned a decision victory there. And man, how good is Max Holloway? That's definitely, as soon as I saw this fight, as soon as it was over, I want to work on a piece. 23 years old. Think about that again, 23. And he just gets better every time he's out there. He's won 5 straight fights. Of those 5, this is the first one to go to the cards. And yeah, he lost to Conor McGregor 2 years ago, but he's the only guy that Conor didn't like steamroll. So man, you don't know how great this guy is going to get. He lost his split decision fight before that to this Bermudez, so he's already fighting guys at the top of the division, and he's doing well against them. So how far is this guy going to go? Um, I'm just excited to see him to keep fighting. I'm looking forward. He's already been rumored to be facing off against Cub Swanson at some point in the next couple coming months. So that could be a big point for him there. He gets that win there, and he could be immediately back in the title picture, especially if Conor McGregor loses. So what, like, man, how? And I say that, as kind of like a rhetorical question, like how good is Max Holloway? But I am thoroughly impressed every time I see this guy compete. He reminds me, you see in other sports where young athletes get better every time they compete. You'll see a guy like a kind of think like a Stephen Curry example for the Golden State Warriors, who looks good as a rookie, comes back the next season, looks even better, comes back his third year in, and next thing you know, he's putting up MVP type numbers. Like these, that type of improvement is what Max Holloway is doing. Like the Andrew Luck type of improvement, where these guys are looking good from the very start. Then 2 years down the line, next thing you know, these guys are looking fantastic, and you're like, man, they're only 21 years old, only 22, or Max's case is 23 years old. Like how great is this guy really going to be when it's all said and done? I think he has a lot of different tools that are helping him. With his height, being 5'11" at featherweight is definitely a big benefit for him there. So I'm very excited to see what happens next with him. I hope they really get this fight with Cup going, and I think he should take that fight there. It'll be a challenge for him because Cup's a ridiculously tough veteran. He knows how to deal with taller fighters. So this would be a challenge for him to see how far he can really go. But I'm looking forward to seeing it happen if they can get that card together. I'm a big Max Holloway guy, so I'm glad to see that win for him. Neil Magny got another win against Kishi Kumimoto. He finished him in the third round. Neil Magny is another guy. How good is he? Pulled out another win. Don't ever sound excited to see him fight, but this is number 6 in a row. He fought 5 times last year, won all 5, and then people were joking about him being fighter of the year. They weren't talking about it seriously, but this is number 6 here. So if he keeps putting on a win, if he keeps getting wins, it'll be time to start taking this guy seriously. However, he doesn't need to fight bigger names. He hasn't fought anyone within the top 15 yet, and if he's going to break into that group, he needs to start getting some ranked opponents, maybe like a Matt Brown or someone who, or Eric Silva or something like that, someone along those lines where it's like, okay, this guy's a name. Let's see what he can really do. So I think Eric Silva fights this coming weekend. Let me check. Not sure. I think no, he doesn't fight this weekend, but like that's just one name, someone that stands out to me. But yeah, Neil Magny got a six straight win, so we'll see what's next for this guy going forward. What else could we take from last night? Ray Borg got a win. He finished Chris Kalidas with a submission in the third round. You know that's another big win for him. Flyweight is kind of wide open. There's definitely some tough names there. Speaking of flyweight, Zach McCausey got another win over Tim Elliott, and Zach's another one of those guys who I think kind of flies under the radar. He had that loss to Formiga a couple months back, where kind of bumped him back, but he's still within the top 10 of the division. So I still think this guy can eventually challenge for the title. He's 32 years old, so he has to kind of make that run now. But with a good, 3, 4 wins, he can easily become a number one contender. I mean, if they gave a title shot to Chris Carriazo, this guy can definitely earn one too as well. I know Kyoji Horiguchi is getting the next shot against Demetrius Johnson, but I that'll be an interesting fight as well. We'll probably talk about that at a later date. But this is definitely someone who I think who can who can make some noise at 125. Since moving over to UFC, he's won 3 and lost 1. So he's someone I would like to see out of him. Maybe pairing him up against Ray Borg next would be a good test for both of them to kind of see where these two guys are going. But both of those flyweights got some valuable wins on Saturday. Efrain Escudero got another win as well. It's always good to see him back in the octagon after having his troubles and being cut. Same with Kevin Lee. He got another win too. So there were some good wins. There was some good value on this card. I know a lot of people were down on it. They didn't think it was going to be a watchable event, but you know, I'm always a fan of watching fights. That's why we're in this position, we're in this industry. So again, it was definitely a worthwhile showcase. So before I start talking, so I want to change gears now. I'm going to talk about some of the news that came out this past week before I look forward to the next UFC card this coming Sunday. I believe it is actually, Sunday in Brazil. So before I talk about that, let's talk about some of the news. Obviously, we have the failed drug test situations that are coming out left and right. We have the Anderson Silva Nick Diaz situation from UFC 183, where I've talked about that. I've ranted about that. It's come out again that essentially Anderson Silva failed 2 pre-fight tests. So there's that whole situation. Then you have the Hector Lombard test failure, where there's another situation where a fighter fails a test and doesn't find out until an extended period of time after. So you still have that problem as well too. So it's stressful to see all these guys fail tests and no one really know what's going on. Like, what's the process? Why aren't we finding out until late? Why aren't we? It just seems dirty right now. The UFC is supposed to have a press conference on the 18th about what's going on, and while that's admirable, it's still like we need some legit answers. Why aren't we finding out about the situations? Why are guys failing tests and still being allowed to get into the cage? What is the true process? Why isn't this process being spread up? There's so many questions, and I hope that the press does a good job of asking. This is going to be a real test of the MMA media, because you see in other sports when situations come up, the tough questions are asked and they are expected to be answered. I don't think that same thing has occurred within the MMA media, but someone really needs to step up now and earn their money and ask some difficult questions during this press conference on Friday, or excuse me, the 18th. I wish I could be there because I gladly would do it, but something needs to be done, because this is a difficult situation for the fight industry itself, because it's just a matter of time before something bad does happen, and no one wants to see that. But no one wants to see a bad situation occur and then it come out where a fighter was on steroids when it occurs. So I mean, hell, building off of that, there was that video on Sure Dog about the fighter who had a seizure after he got knocked out, and like that is a scary situation. Like this is the world that we live in. These are these dangerous situations that everyone talks about, where guys are getting damaged in a way that no one can really know at this point in time. So what happens if that occurs when someone dies on national TV or dies on a pay-per-view in a UFC event or something like that? Like how do we respond to that? And then if the situation comes out where that fighter was on PDs and the right steps weren't made to protect his opponent, like that's going to have a monumental effect that could definitely tear through the sport. So I'm interested in seeing what is going to happen with this press conference on the 18th, and just see how, and the UFC really needs to do something. They need to stand up and kind of put themselves in the forefront and let these fighters know that this is not something that they're going to accept, big name or not. And they really need to. I'm basically begging and pleading for them to do something in a way that is leaps and bounds beyond what the other sports have done to kind of prove that they're trying to get this out of the sport, get it out of the sport now. Other news that came out, definitely as I mentioned, was the Uriah Faber Frankie Edgar fight. They're set to fight in uh, Manila, which I think is awesome. I think that has the potential to be the fight of the year already, just on paper, because you know how those two guys fight. You have to wonder if Faber's going to be able to keep up with Edgar's speed, and I'm wondering who's going to be the stronger fighter there. Obviously Edgar's dropping down from lightweight to featherweight, but Faber's fought at lightweight. He's fought at featherweight before. He was a long-term champion there, so it'll be interesting to see who's the stronger fighter, whose wrestling is better at this weight class. I can't wait. I don't know if there was a date tag to it. I feel like there already was, but I'm not sure what date it was. But I am looking forward to that fight, probably more so than any other fight this year already. So I hope everyone stays healthy. Both of those guys tend to stay healthy. They tend to show up. So I'm looking forward to seeing what will come out of that. Those are probably like the two biggest points of news that came out of this past week. I already mentioned that Demetrius Johnson and Kyoji Horiguchi is now the main event of UFC. This is the one. It's the UFC event where TJ Dillashaw is fighting against Kenneth Morale. So that's in April. So Demetrius Johnson has already been moved up into the co-main event slot against Horiguchi for that. I'm looking forward to that fight. I expected Horiguchi to get the title shot after his last performance, and with the way the flyweight division is kind of wide open, it's easy, and I use that in quotes. It's easy for individuals to get a title shot there. So um, yeah, it's definitely a pretty good card to get. I'm going to look forward to it, but people are going to be down on the card just because it's a bantamweight and flyweight co-main event. But again, I think it's two good fights that are definitely worth watching for sure. Let's look forward to UFC Fight Night this weekend, where you have Frank Mir and Antonio Silva fighting. I was talking about this in passing with someone, and they kind of mentioned it like the TRT retirement tour, because obviously you have Mir and Silva, two guys who have recently had issues with TRT. I don't want to say necessarily say issues, but they've been in the conversation about it. So obviously this is, I don't man heavyweight MMA doesn't excite me. Especially in a way when it's fights like this. Two guys who are well outside of the title picture, and I don't think I will watch the fight live. I'm not looking forward to that main event. If I was a fight, I definitely want to watch the card for other reasons, but man, I don't know how I'm really gonna get behind that. And those other reasons, for example, Edson Barbosa and Michael Johnson are fighting in the co-main event. I think that's gonna be a good lightweight fight there, because both of these guys are on the cusp of like top 10 positioning there. So this will be a big win for whoever can get the victory there. I'm going to lean towards Johnson because of his wrestling and his power, which has kind of rocked Barbosa before. So I expect Johnson to take that win, but they are fighting in Brazil, so you never know how though that judging may go. Rustam Habibov is coming back to the cage against Adriano Martin. And those two guys were two men who are on pretty good runs in the organization since they before they ran into their recent losses. So I'm interested in seeing what those two guys can do coming back. I'm expecting Rustam to take that fight there. Looking on down the card, Jessica Andrade. I'm looking forward to seeing what she does as well because she had a pretty good start to her. Double check. I think yeah, I remember her first fight against Liz Carmouche where she basically got beat up, but since then she's won three straight, which is pretty important in the women's bantamweight division. Again, that's another group where there aren't a lot of contenders there. So a win for her on Sunday can kind of open up that'd be a four-fight winning streak where I think other than Beth Correa, it'll probably be the most wins for any other individual not named Ronda Rousey. So again, that's a big fight for her too. And then another individual I'm looking forward to is Cody Gibson as well. Since he's always been an interesting character in the promotion, but ever since that Club Raw that kind of went awry for him a couple months back, that's why his name was out there in the press. But he's another one of those young guys at 27 years old who looks good fighting, and I have a lot of hope for him. He's a big bantamweight too, so I want to see what's next for this guy. But he's someone that I have high hopes for. He so far he hasn't been that great in the octagon. I think he needs a win here to stay on the roster. But he has a tough challenge out there. But I think he can get the job done. So he's someone else I'm looking forward to watching fight. But again, this may not be the greatest card. It's a Sunday night card, so maybe that'll be a little bit more enticing for people just to chill out at home and watch the sports on Sunday. But that is kind of my look at the UFC event this weekend. So what else do we have going on in the world of combat sports? Obviously, there's still the Mayweather Pacquiao hype. That's just kind of at a standstill right now. We're not really sure what those two guys are going to do. Would I watch? Of course, I would love to watch those two guys fight, even if it is at a point where neither one of them is at the greatest spot in their career, in their athletic ability, but still, everyone who watched that fight, there's going to be a boatload of money made as well. Speaking of boxing, I actually just watched the ESPN 30 for 30 No Mas on Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Robinson, or Sugar Ray Leonard, excuse me. And if you're a fight fan, especially with boxing, you should definitely find a way to watch that that documentary because it's a very interesting look at not only that fight, that everyone knows that famous quote from, but just those two guys as well, just those two guys as men, and how they felt about each other coming into the fight. It really feels. We often talk about how MMA, a lot of the animosity is made up, and these guys really don't like they really are faking when it comes to how they like each other, how they don't like each other. But Leonard and Duran, I really do not think they liked each other at all. And the way they talk about each other in the documentary was kind of interesting to me. But on top of that, Duran was hated in Panama after what he did. There's a political figure there during the documentary that's calling him a coward multiple times. Like he has nothing positive to say about Duran for what he did in that fight. And I swear I've never seen anyone political like that in such a way. But it's definitely a documentary that's worth fighting or worth watching if you're a sports fan, worth watching if you love boxing. So I'm putting my stamp of appeal on it. I love ESPN 30 specials, and that's probably one of my favorite ones. I got to see it Friday night. This week on MMA Ratings, we could definitely sit down and check out. I plan on doing a piece on Max Holloway. Because I'm looking forward to that. I'm probably going to do another failed test piece because there was an interesting conversation about how it affects someone's legacy. And when they were talking about John Fitch, for example, because he recently failed it. Luckily for him, he failed the test right around this time where Anderson Silva and the Nick Diaz situation, the Hector Lombard situation was coming out, so no one really caught an eye on it, but yeah, it, I'm gonna write a piece about TRT and just the legacy effect that it has on those guys who failed drug tests. So yeah, I'm probably gonna do a piece on Max and a piece on that. We'll have our fights to make for the winners and losers of USC Bloomfield coming up probably tomorrow. So keep an eye out on that too as well. And just another funny little news bit. I'm not sure if you saw the piece about the story about Chandler Jones wanting to fight John Jones for charity. I would watch it. Chandler talks about how he used to beat up John when they were younger. So it's a good little joke, but they've done other celebrity fights, so hey, I would probably watch this one too. But anyway, that's off on the side there. So again, this is Raphael Garcia for MMA Ratings.net. You can follow us at MMA Ratings on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the website www.mmaratings.net. You can follow me at rgarcia_sports. And yeah, be sure to check us all out. Like any pictures, like any pieces you see, retweet anything that you read. But we always appreciate the support, and you can come back next week to check us out. Have a great Sunday, everybody, and stay the heck out of this cold.